All right. A wonderful morning, my students. So today we're going to meet on a new session. So, let me just go through or show you the syllabus again. So we could ensure that we are on the right page. All right. So we have completed the first competency level that where we spoke about the analysis and the concept of business. So make sure that you stick to the concepts and you stick to the content because we have to be in the limited framework because I do notice some of the institutes they go beyond the content level, right? I mean, because this is thing that you're going to face in your A level exam, right? So they probably or 99% of probabilities they stick to the particular content level, right? So you don't have to go beyond the content, but yes, there are certain things that you have to know because it's not about only that you learn business studies for the purpose of your advanced level exam, right? So it's more than that, right? So you have to make sure that once you finish your exams that you should be able to at least understand a basic concept of a business and how business are working on what is involved in the business, all these things, right? So we can go up to a certain extent. As we spoke on the last session, we spoke about the consumer rights and then spoke about the aims of business. We spoke a few areas which is not within the framework, but yes, that is important, I believe. All right, so today we're going to speak about the competency level 2 on the first competency. So that speaks about the evolution of business, right? So here we'll be talking about these areas of self-economy, direct production, evolution of business, the barter system, how money involved, and all these things we're going to talk about. All right. So without any further delay, let's get into the today's chapter. All right. So many of you know what is self-sufficient economy, right? You know the word sufficient or sufficiency. So self-sufficient economy. Let me bring in an example, right? Imagine we know with the existing or with the pandemic early days, like 2, 3 years before, where as a country, Sri Lanka had suffered a lot, right? And then with the present, or I mean, with the uh, appointment of a new president in 2019, then afterwards there were so many restrictions on banning the fertilizers or chemicalized fertilizers which we were bringing from abroad. All right, and then we saw there was a hike in the vegetables prices because we saw that the production of vegetables gradually, which led to the hike of price. So that's a very basic concept in economics, where when the demand increases, yes, the price goes up, right, and the supply is going down. So it's obvious. But how do I relate this with the self-sufficient economy? See, many of the houses or household people were motivated to develop or build their own home gardens to produce vegetables. Maybe many of you would have attempted it. All right. See, now we needed vegetables for our daily consumption to eat. And then rather than getting into a market of purchasing something, we tried or we wanted to use our own produce. So there was a requirement of eating vegetables and we utilized it within our garden rather than we go and purchase from another place. So that is self-sufficient. So in a country's or in an economy's perspective, when you take this as self-sufficient economy, an economy or a country is completely independent on their producers on its own goods, and which the important part is it should not import goods or services. And that's called self-sufficient economy, right? So many of your parents or many of your grandparents might know where in Sri Lanka around the 1970s, within that period of 1890s, there was a restriction of where the economy was considered to be a closed economy, right? Then the prime minister brought up a restriction not to bring or import goods or services from other countries. So Sri Lanka was struggling, and I mean, we were going towards a self-sufficient economy where we had to fulfill our own need by producing our own products, right? So you could just check with your grandparents or maybe your parents of those eras, right? It was a time frame where people were limited with the rationing portion. A family will be given with only one loaf of bread. If there are four members, they have to split it and they have to eat. And limited portion of rationing or distributing goods, right? So I have given you a link over here, right? I can just admit or add the link on the comments section as well, so you could just go through them and there you have a detailed study about that. All right, so you understand what is self-sufficient economy. All right, so this self-sufficient or self-sufficiency led to something called direct production, right? So direct production is the production of goods for one's personal use. Clear? Direct production is the production of goods for one's personal use. See, if you want something you produce for yourself, that's called direct production. A very simple example: you're home alone and you are in need of food. You go, you open up a instant noodle packet, you make your noodle for yourself. That's direct production, right? So self-sufficient economy is something that is more related with this. All right, and then there is something called indirect production, is whereby one produces his goods for sale. So when you produce something for others or in the intention of selling, that's considered to be indirect production. So why do I bring these two concepts over here? All right, this is related with the business evolution. So let's get into that area. All right, so remember very carefully, this is something is being tested regularly, right, in your exam papers. And I want to say the last competency areas that we covered. On the next video, you could expect some of the past paper questions and the answers of those questions. All right, so that's how we are going to go. So I would recommend you please take at least 5 years past papers and just go through the questions, and you'll be able to figure out the answers within the area which we have discussed already. Right, so I will also bring you some of the past paper questions where you will be able to see how things are working on the past paper questions. So it's better, I believe, while we finish a particular area, looking into those questions and answers will be a best option, where we don't have to drag and go through the entire paper later on. So we know which area to be learned for which particular question. All right. Okay, so today we're going to talk about a very important topic: evolution of business. All right, and I wanted you all to follow the ones which are highlighted in blue. So those are the concepts, or those are the areas that you could expect questions on your paper. It could be MCQ, it could be filling the blanks, or it could be the part to the descriptive questions related with the evolution of business. All right, let's talk about this. In ancient times, trade began as a barter system. So what is barter system? In which people exchanged one object for another. Again, in which people exchanged one object for another. Let me talk an example. See, probably in your school, with your schoolmates or with your classmates, there might be so many occasions where you might have exchanged many of your things. Maybe pens, right? Maybe shoe pairs, right? Maybe smartphone accessories, right? Where you get one and you give one of yours, exchanging one object for another. So in this particular case, when you exchanged your pen with another pen, probably you exchanged only the pen where you did not give the person money, or the person did not pay you money. So it's very important. Barter system is something where people exchange one object with another object. Understood? So when you speak about the history of this, prehistoric humans traded animal skins or services for food. Right? I don't want to go so behind in terms of the human evolution, right? Already you would have learned in history a lot. So we know earlier days we were in a cave and people were struggling and people started hunting their food, and then some of them started growing up. This is how it started, right? And then later on we were not willing to always eat meat or eat something that we were finding. So we wanted to taste something new. So there came the barter system where people started to exchange one object for another. All right. So belongings were exchanged for munition, herbs, food, and tea. Salt was considered a common exchange item, and Roman soldiers wanted it so much that their salaries were paid with it. See, so many things happened in earlier days. Europeans traveled around the world to barter crafted items and furs in exchange for skills and perfumes. You know, when British people came to Sri Lanka, they took so many things to their country. And what they left over is, well, the question is for you, right? And livestock was as well demanded in bartering. So if someone owned cows and sheep, it meant they were wealthy. You know, this was what the barter system brought. But the system failed. Again, the barter system failed. Why? The barter system often creates an unbalanced system of trade where parties are unable to find others willing to trade. This is the point. Unable to find others willing to trade. Imagine you are good in producing mangoes, all right? And that's the only thing that you could produce, or you have, right? You're harvesting more mangoes. And you see the next door is good in harvesting or producing apples. And go and talk to the person and say, well, I do have more mangoes. What do you think? An exchange. I give you mangoes and you give me apples. If the particular person is not willing to have mangoes, and if he feels that, I mean, mango is not that tasty compared to apple, so I'm not going to get apples. So you're going to say, well, I don't want to exchange apple with mangoes. Instead, I would find something else. So where parties are unable to find others willing to trade. So the barter system also lacks a common unit of measurement for goods and services, right? So you understood two parts. See, willingness to trade, that's one point that you have to understand where the barter system failed. And then common unit of measurement for goods and services. So this is also one point that you have to understand. Since most goods depreciate without time, they become less attractive for trade and storing value. Yeah, that's very important point. Goods depreciate, right? Goods will get wasted. So these were the issues where the barter system failed. So similar to barter, commodity money worked on the same principle, with the only difference that societies placed different values on specific items. So when the barter system failed, but still we needed to go along with the trade. So that was something that was hitting on, right? So we had to find some solution to come into a or work on trading. So let's assume that we have two farmers. One is X and a Y. Let's see what is X doing. X is growing olives and Y is growing potatoes. So farmers X, right? So farmers of X, excuse me. Right? So farmers X needs potatoes and offers farmers Y olives in exchange. But Y doesn't need olives at all. So as a result, Y refuses the offer and the exchange fails. This was the main challenge of barter. So it was quite hard to agree on two goods to be exchanged. So there came what? A commodity. Therefore, the common things like shells, salt, and pebbles. So these were the ancient time commodity which were using as transferable instruments. You know what is transferable instruments, right? Commodity or money is a transferable instrument, or it's a commodity of exchange. All right. So common things like shells, salt, pebbles were looked at as commodities for exchange. This enabled farmers X to sell his olives in exchange for shells as money, And with those sales, he could simply buy potatoes from farmer Y. So commodity money brought the birth of money in ancient times, and economies started to develop because of that. So this led something called trade. Remember, I asked you to follow anything that is highlighted in blue. So trade, the activity of buying and selling or exchanging goods and services between people or countries is basically trade. So you understand? So there were problems existed along with the barter system with issues or with problems. All right. So therefore, the solution was a commodity for exchange where resolve the problems of barter system, and still things were exchanged. All right. So when you speak about the evolution of money, here we go. So the first or the ancient times, you see what happened. They were using shells, salt, and pebbles. And later on, people started to use metallic money or coins. As people were using commodity money more often, they identified new problems. So they were using shells, salts, and pebbles, but there were so many problems using them as well. Right? This trading medium had three major common defects. Perishability. What do you mean by perishability? Right? So perishability means cannot be stored. You cannot store something. That's called perishability. So people were finding difficult to store things. Imagine shells, salt, you can't store for a very long period. So it was hard for people to, exchange, use those commodities for exchange. And then indivisibility, right? Or indivisibility. You cannot, divide things. The state incapable of being divided. It's very hard, when you get salt, you can't divide salt into portions. It's very hard for them to use. For example, say I wanted to buy 10 apples. I'm going to give you some salt. What quantities was a question. So it was hard for them to divide. So divisibility. And then heterogeneity, all right, which the quantity or the quality of state of being diverse in character or content. It was hard for you to, to say, right, this is worth of this much. It was hard to find that. All right. So these were the issues where these common things as commodities for exchange failed. So that led to the metallic money or coins. They couldn't be kept for a long time, so people couldn't repay their loans or save money, and then other needs in the future. Besides that, commodities were not the same in every market, and trading with other regions was very difficult. All right. So these were the concerns. Hello. Yeah. Extremely sorry. I was thinking that I have shared the right page, but I'm sorry. All right, here we go. I could just show you whatever we spoke already, so you can just have a look on it. So I spoke about the sufficient economy. I gave an example. I spoke about what is direct production and indirect production. Then here we go. We have the evolution of business. All right, just take your time. You could look into this. I believe it's visible right now. All right, all the things that we spoke, right? And I have the links that I told you. Or you could go and check on the parts. So I will just update these links in the comment section where you could just click on them and see what's happening. All right, evolution of business, as I told you, you see the barter system failed. Everything is in detail. And why barter system failed, the problems I told you, willing to trade, common unit of measurement. And then we spoke about the commodities for exchange. All right, so the commodities for exchange. These were the commodities for exchange in early ancient times: shells, salt, and pebbles. And then the trade. What happened to trade, or how trade came into place? All right. And then we are speaking on the metallic money or the coins, right? So with the problems of perishability, indivisibility, and heterogeneity, it led to issues. So the metallic money came into the play. So they couldn't be kept for a long time, so people couldn't repay their loans or save it for other needs in the future. Besides that, commodities were not same in every market, and trading with other regions was very difficult. So that was the introduction of metallic money. And then after the money was introduced, paper currency was introduced into the market, right? Representative money. So when you ask, if you ask me why people moved from coins or metallic money to paper currency, no, we can't say that. I mean, there were issues, yes, but production cost in terms of producing, just imagine if you wanted to produce a coin, probably you have to use metals and all these things. The production cost might be high on. All right, but so maybe people started to use paper money, which is the production cost is less. All right, so that's how the money or the evolution of money started. So paper currencies was first developed in Tang Dynasty, China during the 7th century, but true paper money only appeared during the Song dynasty in the 11th century. So Marco Polo was the one that introduced the concept of paper money in Europe during the 13th century. Back then, paper money was used to buy goods, and it operated in many ways, just like currencies nowadays. So paper currency or the coins are still existing. All right. So the main difference was the currency was issued by banks and private institutes. Now the government is responsible for issuing money in almost all countries. So every country's central bank, which is a government authoritative institute, is responsible to monitor and issue money. All right. So every country. So representative money was made and is currently made of materials with little to no value. So that's the important part, right? Because the production cost, when the production cost is high, so that's why I believe that people move to paper currencies. The real value was backed by a bank's promise to exchange that piece of paper for various goods such as gold or silver. And then, there's something called credit money. As money became the main standard and society started to realize that living a good life is dictated by a piece of paper, life was not safe anymore. So paper money had no protection from theft, and rich people were treated as targets by thieves. In response, a banking system was created. So this model enabled people to save their earnings into safe savings account and allocate loans for people in need. However, in its early stage, the biggest issue was that the money lenders were exploiting poor people. That is still there. We have loan sharks, we say, right? That, I mean, Naya Mudalali, Poli Mudalali, right? Those people, right? So as a result, banks took the responsibility to provide loans with some conditions. So credit money is something that comes through a government or recognized institute. Now, see, I want to bring this concept very important, right? Whenever people get trapped into this credit money concept, because people are in need of money, right? There are so many institutes which lend money, but please make sure if that particular institute is actually coming into or going into, or whether it's authorized or it's authorized, or it is being approved by the central bank is really important, right? People get trapped because when they go into such institutes, sometimes they try to exploit people. The meaning of exploiting, right? So please be cautious on that part, and please make aware of your parents or your relatives as well. And then what is electronic money or plastic money more than me, because you are people who have used more of debit cards and credit cards. Probably when you do online purchasing and all, you use these cards. So what is electronic money. And I'm going to talk about something really interesting, which is more famous, many of you right know, cryptocurrencies. Well, this particular concept, yes, in certain countries it is not still accepted. Even in Sri Lanka it is not still accepted, but there are certain economies or certain nations which are accepting cryptocurrencies. In fact, the richest person in the world, Mr. Elon Musk, is also a person who is using cryptocurrencies, or people could purchase a Tesla using Bitcoins or cryptocurrency. So it is becoming a popular currency, right? Let's talk about cryptocurrencies. In simple terms, it's virtual currencies. In 2008, Bitcoin was first cryptocurrency to appear. So Satoshi Nakamoto, whose true in identity is still a mystery, was the one that mined the first block of the Bitcoin network, piloting the blockchain technology. So this is in terms of the blockchain technology. The most important differentiator of crypto payments is that the transactions are decentralized without a governing body. So that is the threat, where not every nation is still accepting this cryptocurrency because there is no a governing body. Transactions are stored in individual blocks and are immutable. So cryptocurrencies are not tangible and they do not possess a physical value. So these are also some of the drawbacks, I would say, why people are in a threat of using this, right? Businesses begin to realize using crypto payments results in a lower transaction fees. So that is the main concern why people are moving on to cryptocurrencies. Without intermediaries involved in the process, traditional credit card fees are not an expense anymore. To give you an understanding of the evolution of crypto, as we speak, there are 5,000 cryptocurrencies out there. So the same blockchain technology is powering non-fungible tokens, enriching commerce and experiences. We have a section that focuses on how to mint and sell NFC tickets on our platform, right? So on the next session, I'll be giving you a kind of simple explanation of cryptocurrencies and how it works. For now, it's up to you to go and do the research. All right, I'm going to end this today's session. So you remember we spoke about self-sufficient economy, we spoke about direct production, we spoke about indirect production, and there's something called personal specialization. I'm giving that to you. What is personal specialization? Think of it. See, if you are good at doing something, you are becoming person specialized in it, right? So personal specialization is something you relate with the self-sufficient economy. The more you do the same thing, you become specialized in it. A best example is Sri Lanka is commonly known as Ceylon, the world context. Why? Because we are good in producing Ceylon tea. So we did keep on doing the same thing again and again. So we became so special in producing tea. So that's one country specialization. All right. So imagine Mr. Um, how do you bring up? Come on, Bill Gates. Yes, he was a person who was specialized in software production. So you know the world is conquered by Microsoft right now, with so many softwares bringing up concepts or solving issues. So Bill Gates was a person who was specialized in software developing or programming. So he is an example for personal specialization. So when you speak about specialization, you understand specialization could be on a personal context, on a business context, on a country's context, right? So it could be a society's context. You know, in Sri Lanka, Morto is so famous for producing furnitures. All right. And you know, Ratnapura is famous for giving diamonds and all these sort of minerals and all these things. So yeah, society or geographically there will be places which is specialized in something. So this is called specialization, right? So it's up to you. I'm giving it to you. So you do research and learn on that particular area. Spoke about the evolution of business. We spoke about barter system. We spoke about indirect production and how trade evolved. And using of money, we spoke about the evolution of money. The next section will be talking about the industrial revolution. All right. So thank you very much for joining and being patient. Have a good one. Let's meet very soon. So please make sure you request all of your friends and colleagues to please go and use this platform and learn easy with me. Thank you. Have a good one.